Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tool Talk episode 23. Now, some may call this the Jordan episode, but since I'm the host, we're going to go ahead and call it the LBJ episode. I know some of my guests may disagree with that, but that's what we're going to go with. But yeah, we have a really exciting episode today. We're going to talk about the current state of the skilled trades, specifically in the US. And we're just going to go over some of the legislative incentives for growth, as well as what we see going forward in terms of the skilled trades industry. To help break this down, we have two professionals, Ricardo and Lawrence. Ricardo, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what brings you here today.
Thank you, Jose. I'm excited to be here. My name is Ricardo Griselli. I represent iHacky. We're a trade association out of Southern California. We do all things for the HVAC industry. I'm really excited about the partnership with Jonard's Tools, and more importantly, getting some relevant information out there to those that are in the HVAC community. So we do all things. We have a publication out here called Indoor Comfort News, where we try to get information to our HVAC technicians. So we do a little bit of everything, education and training for the industry.
Awesome. Thank you, Ricardo. And Lawrence, a little bit about yourself, your background, things of that nature.
Sure. Lawrence Castillo. I am the vice president of iHacky and the organization that Ricardo runs. And as well, I've spent the last 25 years in the HVAC industry. I have 4 residential companies in Southern California. And the most notable is called Brody Pennell. And we're the largest company in Los Angeles. And so been in and around the trades for the last 25 years, and love what I do, love the impact that we make on the young people in our organizations, and happy to be here.
Awesome, and thank you both for being here. We're happy to have you as well. So let's get started. I want to first talk about the present state of the skilled trades in the US as we know it. Now, obviously, I don't have the breadth of experience that someone like Lawrence has, but even with the little bit of experience I have, I do see a bit of a resurgence when it comes to the skilled trades. And some of the things that I've read online have kind of highlighted some of the incentives for younger individuals specifically to get into the skilled trades. So I wanted to ask specifically Lawrence, because I know you've had so much experience. How do you see the state of the skilled trades right now? And in addition to that, have you seen it evolved from, let's say, like 20, 15 years ago to now, and also, looking forward to how you think it's gonna be built here in the U.S.?
Sure. So my companies are heating and air conditioning and plumbing. And, over the course of the last 25 years, we've seen a great change. And let me illustrate that by just giving you an example with Brody Pennell, my company in Los Angeles. We bought this company 4.5 years ago, and we had 30 employees. And we knew that, we wanted to build it and grow it and to scale the business. And we really started with people coming from trade schools. That was our starting point. We just didn't have people walking in our doors wanting to work for us from other companies that already had experience. So we knew that we were going to have to do some legwork, and we started with the trade schools, and we really started to build the company, by grabbing people from the trade schools. But we found that, we weren't able to get that done quickly enough. So we ended up starting our own school here. And what we do is every quarter we graduate a class. But what I've found recently is that these classes of students that we put through, they're 15 people. And every time we run this, we get 5,000 applicants. And we narrow it down to 20 people, 15, 20 people for the class. But 5,000 applicants. That's where things are here in Los Angeles. There's just far too much demand. And, I'm looking for 15 or 20 people to get, trained up in each quarter. So the demand is there, right? And I think and every time we do these interview sessions to try to narrow down to those 15 or 20 people, we really see a lot of great people who are very hireable. But what we found is that they've either, washed out of a job or are looking for a change. They've heard about the trades from an uncle or a brother. And they've seen that it's a really sustainable and really, necessary, part of daily life, right? We can't get through the day without our plumbers and our air conditioning technicians and our electricians and our roofers and all of that. So they see that, they hear it from their family members, and that's what gets them interested. And so I think when you rewind the hands of time 15, 20 years ago, trade schools, we were doing the same thing, trying to build a company, but trade schools weren't pumping out graduates like they do today, right? The demand has increased. The locations of the schools have increased. So things have changed over the course of time. And I know that Ricardo has some experience with this that he can speak on. But in my seat as the owner of a service company, we took it into our own hands and we produce our own students, but the demand is out there. It's just a lot of people want to be in the trades. So it's a great thing to see, because the next generation are these young folks, and it's exciting. It's an exciting part of our business to graduate people and get them in the field and watch them fall in love with what we all know is a great industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you spoke a little bit there about demand, how there's a big demand right now for workers. Ricardo, you and I have spoken about this a little bit in some of our talks, and you've mentioned, there is sort of like a shortage of skilled workers because a lot of the older generation is starting to retire. Can you talk about that demand a little bit, and what you see from your perspective in terms of the resurgence specifically for younger people?
Yeah, absolutely. As Lawrence alluded to, when I first met Lawrence, I remember him telling me about all these great ideas he was going to do with this company. And we had just started an HVAC training program at that time. And we had a handful of students. Maybe we had 40 students that were enrolled at that time for the HVAC program. That same program is enrolling 200, 300 now. And in that time, I watched employers like Brody Pinnell start out with making a small request of just a handful, 2, 3, 4, moving up to 20, 25, 30, and the demand was there. It was so many students that were coming out and so many employers that were looking for students that it was a natural progression for us. But to be able to get the right student in front of the right employer sometimes was a challenge, but the job opportunities were there. Like, it was surprising to find out how many employers were looking for qualified applicants. But again, that work ethic, somebody that wanted to come in and learn, was super important to any career, but especially in trade. So I seen the demand go from a handful and a school offering a bunch of other courses that weren't skills trades related and kind of dominated by 80% of the students that were going there in healthcare, have now switched over to where 80% of the students are in skills trades programs, not only HVAC, but plumbing, automotive, electrical, welding. So the vocational trade schools are changing to meet the demand, and the labor market supports that. So it's been exciting to see that opportunity be provided for people that are choosing education to be successful. And I've seen so many young folks go in there bright-eyed, get the reality of what the job is, and then start building a career that really provided for those that they love. So HVAC's a great industry, but I've seen it grow tremendously in the short time I've been involved. So it's an exciting time. Skills trades are where it's at.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And you speak a little bit about the younger generation. So I obviously don't have, like I said, as much experience as either of you when it comes to my involvement in the skilled trades. But I do know that growing up, whether it be high school or whether it be, college, there was never really an emphasis on the skilled trades and the kind of career path that it can provide for you as a sustainable, long-term career. And, at my 2 years here at Jonard, I've seen that awareness kind of rise over the years. A lot more students are looking into the skilled trades. It's starting to be seen as a viable long-term career path. I've worked with some high schools, specifically in the fiber optic industry, who has had like a huge resurgence in terms of, students and people who want to get into the industry. And so I asked this question, and Ricardo, maybe you can start because I know you've had, some experience in school and education. But do you feel like the awareness is there for the younger generation? Do you think that they have sort of like an avenue or the resources for them to kind of look at the skilled trades and see it as a viable option for them? Because as a lot of other kind of career paths are promoted and things of that nature. But have you seen a rise in the awareness from your own personal experience?
Recently, I have. I was in high school many years ago, but when I was in high school, there was that option. There was shop classes, there was automotive, there was lots of skills trades being introduced at the high school level for those of us that were interested to go into skills trades. Then I want to say maybe in the 1990s, in the early 2000s, some of those classes were no longer being offered nor heavily promoted within high schools. So there was a whole generation that weren't necessarily being able to get that hands-on exposure during the high school years as much as I did when I was in high school, and friends of mine that went on to skills trades careers. So most students at that time were going on to traditional four-year schools that was heavily promoted within the high school arena, and students just didn't see that as an option. I know with some of the Department of Labor statistics that were released about 10 years ago, we anticipated lots of people moving into retirement age and there being this skills labor gap, which was, I think, kind of caused by not the exposure at the high school level as a viable option to students. But that has since changed. Very recently, people are scrambling around to be able to meet that need. We're seeing some local level organizations that are trying to increase awareness in high school. We sit ourselves on a couple of roundtables to be able to expose K through 12 students to the skills trade. But yeah, I think there was just kind of a push for traditional 4-year and maybe didn't necessarily highlight in the high school years how great of a career skills trades is. So we're trying to catch up. But when I was in high school, I remember pushing in my 63 Volkswagen to the automotive shop, and they redid everything. We were tinting windows, we were, working on the engine, and I didn't have that class, but we were all exposed to that. And I have a son that recently graduated from college, and those options weren't there for him in high school. So I think we're trying to get back to that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've seen also just a lot of legislative incentives as well, like a lot of money being pumped into making sure that schools actually fund programs for the skilled trades, right? And I think that's gonna definitely enable a lot of growth in the foreseeable future for the skilled trades and also the HVAC industry. So Lawrence, you spoke a little bit about you run four companies, I believe it was, right?
Lawrence has 20 hats on at all times. Let me tell you. That's one busy man over there.
He's a podcaster today, right? So podcaster today. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of hear you talk a little bit more about your experience like running these companies. I know in terms of finding workers, it could be different depending on what region you're looking at. Whether it be international or domestic. So if you can talk a little bit about your experiences, like finding skilled workers, how things have changed in terms of actually running the business, right? Because it's one thing to be a skilled worker, and it's another thing to run your own business. I think a lot of people will find a lot of positives from your strategies and what has worked and how you see the business side of things evolving for the foreseeable future. So if you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. And back to this business, Brody Pennell, we bought it in 2020 and it was the pandemic and there were 30 people, old business, been around for a long time. We're celebrating our 80th anniversary, but my job as the operator and, the operating partner of the business was to grow it, make it more profitable, more successful. And you can't do that without people. So my very first hire was a recruiter, in-house. And for any service business that has 34 employees, you don't typically have a recruiter. But I knew what the task was. And, her job was to source talent because I'm walking into a business that, needed, it was a turnaround job, right? It just needed all of my attention. And if I'm the recruiter at the same time, it's just not going to get the attention. It's going to be on the back burner. But if I had someone sourcing talent every day, all day, and just putting people in front of me, then, okay, we have a shot. We have a shot to hire 3 people this week or, 4 people next week or whatever. And so she came to us from the gas company. She was already experienced in recruiting technicians for them. And, that was really the start. And before you know it, these 34 people, we became a company of 40 and 45 and 48. And that's when we decided, we made great relationships with the trade schools because we knew that they were going to be able to help us, to find the talent that we needed to grow the business and to scale it. I think that, if you look at our businesses now, and there are 4 of them, one in Orange County, one in San Diego, and 2 here in Los Angeles, that we followed the same recipe for success. My recruiting department has grown. I have more people recruiting for the 4 businesses. And it's just, we never stop. We never stop looking for talent. We have to, because just when you think you're, optimally staffed, something happens. Somebody ends up in the hospital or has to go take care of grandma in another country or whatever. And it's just, we can never stop recruiting. So it's a full-time job here for multiple people. And, but the trade schools, and that's where it started for us. And that's still where we're living, right? We get the applications, and those ladies upstairs, they're just constantly talking to people that we can have a virtual bench with, right? So that when we aren't staffed properly, we can reach to that virtual bench and say, hey, remember that the person that we talked to last week or 2 weeks ago, it's time to pull them in. And that's really how we've grown the business. We have 350 employees now. And, I would like to think that, we're real selective about how we hire here. There's the whole set of contingencies with the background check and the drug testing and all of that. And that's the kind of business that I choose to have, right? We do that very purposefully. We have a lot of customers who they want a certain type of person in their home, somebody who has been vetted, somebody who they feel they can trust. And my job as the employer is to make sure to try to find those kinds of people. When we do the classes with the trade, our little school here, that's part of it as well. We put them through the ringer. And I think that, what's come out of the classes, and we just had a class graduate on Monday, and it was a small class, but we did our ceremony, and they all had their families there. And, you get to hear the stories and you shake the parents' hands and you see the pride that they have in the fact that their son or daughter or brother has made a step change in life, right? They found something that they want to throw themselves into. They found a career path. And I'll tell you what, in this last graduation, there were a lot of little babies crying, right? And there was a couple of strollers parked outside of the room. And these are people who have obligations and families to take care of. And I think they've come to realize that within the trades, you can make a great living, right? You can have dependable work. And this is what they're all looking for. These are people who, have jobs right now where maybe the work isn't dependable or it's just a dead end. A lot of people coming from, they work for Amazon, or they work at the airport, or people that work at Target. And they don't see the room for upward mobility. They don't feel satisfied with what they're doing. And that's why they end up on our doorstep. So, when you're in the trades here, at least in our organization, you're going to be in 2 or 3 houses every day doing service on air conditioners. And, it's a customer service job as well, right? You're going to be talking to our customers and retaining them and making sure that they're happy and, doing extra things around the home to make sure that they stay happy and feel good about your visit. And so, we have a whole teaching part of the organization here that makes sure that they're representing us well in the field. Very proud of what we do, very proud of our people, our online ratings, we protect it. And we're really well rated, and it's because of the people that we have under the roof, right? Very, very proud of our folks. And we try to work hard to retain them and to keep them happy here. So proud of what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you spoke a little bit as well about just the process of, I guess, vetting potential workers, for your business. And I wanted to just ask you, so the way that I see it, right, is you have essentially 2 set of skills. You have your hard skills, right, like your technical skills, which I believe are probably very important, specifically for, the skilled trades. But then you also have your soft skills, right? You spoke a little bit about that as well. Like you have to be able to be good at customer service. You need to be able to, go into someone's home and make sure that they're comfortable having you there, right? So in terms of these skills, what do you look for when you're trying to either hire a worker or, whether it be like a student, to accept a student into your class? What are the kind of things that you look for? Because I feel like that would be, extremely beneficial for the younger generation looking to get into the skilled trades to have an idea what kind of things they should work on, right? Me and Ricardo has spoken actually in the past even about social media, right? There's been a huge presence in social media, specifically Instagram and TikTok, of skilled workers showing their work, right? And I know that for a lot of people that might be something that they look at, So what kind of things do you look for in a worker?
And I'll answer that, but let me just comment real quickly on the TikTok and the Instagram thing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many of my guys are wearing these Ray-Ban glasses. I walk around and I see them and I'm like, I didn't know you wore glasses. Oh, these aren't glasses. These are so I can record my tune-up. They're all doing it. They all, they're proud of what they do and they want to post their work and they want people to see that they're great at what they do. This is a world where we all seek validation, right? And they're young and they're in their 20s and they want to put these videos up and show everybody, hey, like what I do, I'm very good at it and I'm very proud of it. As far as what we're looking for when we're hiring, we need personality, we need charm, we need charisma, because the reality is what we do, it is customer service, and we just happen to fix air conditioners, but we're a customer service company. And I think if you look at it like that, a couple of years ago, I had a chance to sit with the guy who started Starbucks. And, the lesson that I was left with was the fact that, he said that we were just a customer service company who happened to serve coffee, right? We do the same thing here. And when we're interviewing people, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the soft skills because we can teach the rest of it. I have so many smart people under this roof, and I have somebody who's dedicated to teaching these people, in addition to all the managers and all the very experienced technicians that we have here. So we can teach that part. But the reality is that if you're going to walk into 3 strangers' homes a day and your job is to produce some revenue for the company, you're probably not going to be able to do it unless you can go into that house, make that stranger feel comfortable, make a friend. And if you can do that, then you probably have a decent chance of succeeding, maybe doing some business. But if you can't, if you can't talk to people, if you can't make eye contact, if you can't hold a conversation, make someone feel comfortable, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. You're not going to produce much revenue. And sometimes you're on the leaderboard and you see yourself at the bottom, and you may end up washing out of the industry, right? So when I talk to the trade school students, and I've done a lot of that over the last 4 or 5 years, I always talk to them about what you really need to practice is your customer service skills. It's an imposition to have a stranger in your house. And we've all been through it. And that knock comes on the door and they walk into your house and all your stuff is there and your kids are there. And it's just, you want them in and out of the house as quickly as possible, right? But to know that your job is to go in there and to change their opinion and to make them, a raving customer, right? Who wants to go online and post a review and talk about how great the young man that they had in their house was, young man or young lady. It requires great skill and great communication skills and great customer service. So for us, that's what it's all about. That's what we're looking for. Honestly, if you've got, 5 years of turning a wrench under your belt, it doesn't mean as much to me as if you can sit there, smile, and make people feel good. So that's sort of the way that we do it here.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'd like to echo that sentiment as well, because I know I'm very particular about who I let come into my apartment and fix anything. So I always feel super comfortable whenever I have a technician there who's actually wants to create conversation and, like you said, is optimistic, positive, is smiling, as opposed to someone who's just kind of there to do the job, right? It makes me feel like I'm a little bit of a bother when I have people like that in my home. And like you said, it affects my decision making going forward. Like maybe I'm not going to go with this company anymore because, the person that they sent over was, maybe rude or not as engaging or didn't look like, they were happy to be there. So yeah, that's absolutely like really important, especially for people like me who are very particular about, who I allow in my home. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for that information. And, you also spoke a lot about the industry being a dependable industry, right? Especially right now, you're seeing obviously a lot of different people in different industries lose their job. I know AI right now is a huge thing, right? A lot of people are scared about AI potentially taking over their jobs, their job descriptions, but that doesn't seem to be the case in the skilled trades. No matter how good AI gets, I don't think it'll get to the point where it can actually replace the work that's necessary in the skilled trades. I know that AI is used for a lot of the tools to kind of enhance the industry, but that's as far as it goes, right? Just enhancing instead of actually replacing the workers. So can both of you talk a little bit about, I guess, the future of the skilled trades, specifically the HVAC industry as well, in terms of, the dependability of that industry and where you see it going? And we can start with Ricardo. You could talk maybe a little bit about that.
I don't see it going anywhere. It's growing. The labor market information supports that. It's a big part of the reason why I'm at iHacky is this industry is solid. It is growing and the demand is there. So it's stable. I am one of those people that if it gets 72, I'm turning on my air conditioner to get it down to 68. And if it gets 66, I'm turning on my heater to get it back up to 68. So I like comfort, and just knowing that. And, everywhere I go, there is air conditioning or heating. I'm in Southern California. I go to the grocery store. I go buy a pair of pants. I go to the gym. Everywhere I go, there is a unit somewhere, either keeping me nice and toasty the way I like it or nice and cool. So that is everywhere, and it's not going anywhere. So in seeing that, it's exciting to be in the industry. It's exciting to be part of a trade association that's been here for a long time and will continue to be here. So it's just growing. The industry is growing. The opportunities are there. The technology within the industry makes it very strong. So according to the labor market information, we are strong for many, many, many years, and there's no way AI can do what Lawrence just described, making somebody feel comfortable, giving that personal touch. It is critical. We all want to go somewhere and spend our dollars where we're valued, and great technicians do that. It'll be repeat customers. It's just, we're not going anywhere. The industry is here to stay.
And then I'll just piggyback on that. I'm sitting here today in Culver City, and there's a business that this was the second test market for the driverless cars called Waymo, and many cities don't have them yet. But here on the streets in Culver City, I'm quite used to driving next to driverless cars. Right here in Los Angeles, we are. It's just a part of life. On my way this morning, there were 3 of them in traffic, and it's very intuitive. So now the cars don't have drivers. And I pass by 3 of them on my way to work, and I get here to work, and my call center, which is down the hallway from me here, where I have 50 plus agents, we are answering the phone with AI, right? And we're doing that for a few reasons, and I think we're starting to gravitate more toward that way and having less people, simply because AI doesn't call out sick, right? AI doesn't have to, AI is available on the weekend, right? And our customers require, us to be there for them 24/7, and AI can do that, and they can do a pretty good job of that. So the driverless cars pass me on the way to work, and I get here and I've got AI answering the phone. It touches our industry, right? But the reality is that when my customers call and they need their air conditioner fixed, we gotta show up. I gotta send a body out there, and we gotta do the work and give them a great experience. So that part of it's not going to change. And here in Los Angeles, the population is just so immense. It's so immense. Southern California is just, we sit on the freeways all day. Like you can't get places. There's so many people. There's not enough air conditioning companies for the demand, in this city, or heating companies, right, or plumbing companies. So the demand is here. Our phone rings, and it rings and it rings at all hours of the day by people who are going to need us. And we have to be ready and prepared, right? We have to be staffed correctly to be able to serve them quickly, or they're going to find another company that can do it. So this is what I'm talking about. Never stop recruiting, right? We always have to be looking for people. I have a never-ending need to find good people, and it's a great position to be in, right? So I think that the actual AI and the future, it'll touch the peripheral parts of what we do, but the meat and potatoes is just always someone with a tool bag and getting the job done.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, it seems to be that AI is an enhancement to the industry as opposed to, actually replacing skilled workers. Because like you said, it's absolutely necessary to have someone actually present, who can have a conversation with someone, who can make someone feel comfortable in the job site. So that's not going to go away anytime soon. So yeah, I just like to end with this. for you, Lawrence, specifically, since again you've had so much experience in the industry, if you had, I guess, some words of advice for the younger generation that's looking to get into the skilled trades, whether it be, to be an electrician or to be an HVAC, in the HVAC industry, things of that nature, what kind of pointers would you give to them? What should they focus on? What are some things, I guess, that would be beneficial for them to know early on? Just any types of words of advice that you would give someone looking to get into the skilled trades industry.
Sure. I'll tell you what I tell all the trade school students when I go to the trade schools and speak to them. I'm a hiring agent, and there are certain things that I look for, but to me, it all starts with your presentation of yourself, right? If you're going to find a job, you have to show up on time, right? That is a very important thing in my businesses. And we live by that every day. We measure everyone's performance, and it starts with being on time. So if you're going to be searching for a job, you have to be that person, right? You have to be an on-time person. You have to present yourself well. Because the competition out there, like I said, I have 5,000 people applying for 20 jobs. The competition is so fierce that you have to do something that separates you from that competition and makes you stand out. When we're going through all these resumes and we're doing these group interviews with 50 people in a room, and we give them 3 minutes to stand up and tell their story about why they want to be in air conditioning, we're looking for the people that are separating themselves from the competition, right? Because they're competing with everybody in that room and everybody that was in that room 2 days before. And so, it's up to you. Nobody is going to hand you anything. There are some people in this world and in this life that are going to make it happen for themselves, right? They make their own breaks. And you can be content to, be in a dead-end job and go home and kick off your shoes and sit on the couch and watch the game every night. Or you can get off the couch and show up in a place like this and try to do something to better your future and to take care of your family, right? It's all in your own desire and in your own will, what you're going to get done in this life, right? Nobody hands anything to you. And so for the people who are interested in being in this industry, they have to know that it's competitive. They have to know that, at a minimum, you need a trade school education really to get considered to work in most, air conditioning companies or plumbing companies or whatever whatever the case is. But you have to begin to work on yourself and, have a great resume with long tenures at wherever you worked, Jersey Mike's or Target, or if you're come from a customer service background, we want to see people as a hiring party who doesn't work for somewhere for 3 months and 2 months and gets kicked around. Like we're looking for a long-term fit, and a long-term fit for me looks like somebody who's going to walk in the door, look sharp, isn't afraid to look me in the eyes, wants to shake my hand, has a resume that says, hey, I'm serious about working. And that's what I'm looking for, right? So a lot of young people out there, it's there if you want it. It's just how bad do you want it, right? And if you want it bad enough, start preparing yourself, right? Study up on it. You can look online and tell what are the good companies and the bad companies, right? If they're not taking care of their customers and they have a bunch of 1-star reviews, they're probably not taking care of their employees, right? Choose wisely where you want to work. And if you want it bad enough, don't give up. Go out and get it. Like, to the victors go the spoils, right? So that's my advice to the young folks.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. And you heard it from the expert himself. You got to go get it, guys. You got to go get it. Be proactive, and you got to go get it. Awesome. Thank you both once again for joining us. A lot of very beneficial information for people looking to get into the skilled trades. So I appreciate all of the knowledge shared in this session. If you guys want to shout out your social medias or your companies, anything like that, I'm going to give the floor to you guys. Ricardo, maybe you can start that off. Shout yourself out a little bit, chest up.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jose. Thank you again for the invitation. So, hey, those of you that are in the HVAC industry, keep a lookout for Indoor Comfort News, fantastic trade magazine that we put out there on a monthly basis. And we are also a trade association. So any support that we can provide for contractors that are out there, for technicians that are new to the industry, we're here to be all things for those in the industry. So give us a call.
Nice,
Thanks,
nice.
Jose.
Of course.
And I would say I can be found on LinkedIn. And, you know, I have links to lots of industry podcasts that I've done. And I think that if you're a young person, listen to any and all of them, right? I've tried to impart knowledge to people and to help, because there were a lot of people that in my life that helped me, you know, over the course of my career. So it's a great place to start. I'm a contractor who hires students and young people to, you know, for their start in the trade. So I understand it, and I think I probably have some great stuff to say about it if they wanna do that. So
sounds great, and we'll have the links in the description as well for those who want to check out those videos. Thank you both once again for your time. Really appreciate it. And for our audience, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Tool Talk.